Guys, I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast a new guest, Jeff Parker. He is the founder of Parker Vision. In fact, he's chairman of the board, chief executive officer of Parker Vision. The company's been around since 1989. And Jeff is a guy who has been an inventor with more than 31 patents. He's an entrepreneur. He was also a joint venture partner with Carrier Corporation, working on research, development, manufacturing, sales for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. You can follow him on X at against_giants, or the website is just parkervision.com. Jeff, thank you for joining me. I thought we would talk a little bit about this whole issue of trade with China. Trump just today announced a big trade deal with Great Britain, and I was kind of poring over the fine print, and it looks like, it was an unlevel playing field. They had much heavier tariffs than we had on them, so it looks like what's happening is that their tariffs are coming down. Trump is still keeping a modest tariff on Great Britain, but no severe or onerous or kind of confiscatory tariffs. And so it looks like this is the first big deal that Mr. Art of the Deal has worked out with our longtime ally, Great Britain. But I think you would say, and I would agree, that China is a whole different story. Now, for many decades, there were many people who said, oh no, China's not different. We need to open up deals with China. In fact, this is not only mutually beneficial economically, but it's going to have a liberalizing effect on China, maybe even promote democracy in China. I remember all of this talk going back to the Clinton era. So I'd like you to educate us on kind of the real China and how we should, in fact, and how Trump should, in fact, be dealing with them.
Well, great topic. Thank you for having me on today, Dinesh. Happy to be here. I think what the president is focused on, and I'm totally in agreement, is we've got to level the playing field for the American worker, for the American manufacturing opportunities. We cannot continue to carry the whole world on our shoulders. I mean, I understand after World War II why we were very generous to try to help the world rebuild and build an economy. But at this point, it's gone on far too long with the United States taking it in the shorts with very uneven tariffs against us and territorial boundaries that just don't make any sense. You can't continue to operate this way. But just a quick little bit about my background to kind of put some context as to where I'm coming from. So I've been a technology person my whole life. I loved to tinker when I was a kid, and I had the good fortune of starting a company that did some of the very first semiconductor chips for heating air conditioning controls. So back in the day when your thermostat was a little round device that had mercury bulbs and springs, I wanted to bring electronics to that. And so we did the very first digital thermostats that we all take for granted today, but back in the 80s was a big deal. Ultimately, we built that company up, and it was a partnership with Carrier Air Conditioning Corporation, and we ultimately sold the company to United Technologies. That was a whole different era. We designed our chips in the United States. We built our chips in the United States. We put the products together from those chips in the United States. And you know what? We sold products all over North America, all over Europe, and we were starting to sell products into Asia when the United Technologies decided they wanted to buy our company, and we agreed to sell it to them. So that was kind of our starting point. But my perspective has changed significantly since then. We went on to develop other companies, which we've built and sold. But the latest company I've been involved in, we developed the wireless connectivity technology that candidly is why your smartphone can work anywhere in the world. It's why you can put a little Bluetooth thing in your ear and it's tiny. It's why you can get Wi-Fi all over the place now. Our technology is everywhere, but guess what? It's now been heisted and taken to China. And so we had a skirmish with a big tech company who saw our technology fully patented. We thought we could work out some kind of a relationship because we had relationships with large companies before. Carrier Corporation was the biggest in heating air conditioning controls, and it was where 1 + 1 equaled like 10. But in this situation, they liked what they saw, but they decided they weren't going to do a deal with us. Instead, a number of years after we had special non-disclosures and everything in place, we found our technology inside their chips. Okay, that's bad enough. But let me tell you then what happens. This company, in order to get business in China, they don't just have to manufacture in China. They don't have to just support Chinese companies. They're told, you must put engineering facilities in China. You must develop your products in China. And this is where I think it's a step too far, because now all of a sudden you are training your future competitor. And this company had a very large market share 10 years ago, 7 years ago. Well, you can see now their market share has been dropping. You know why? Because people who they trained to develop their products in China have left their employ. And now there are companies like Huawei, ZTE, High Silicon, MediaTek. These are all Asian companies. 3 of the 4 I just mentioned are Chinese companies. And we know this because you can just look at LinkedIn and you can follow where people have been and where they've gone to. And so now they're competing against the very people that they trained. The Chinese know exactly what they're doing. This is no accident. They're on this big 50-year plan to dominate the world. And they are, step going down that path. And, it's bad enough that they may come here and steal intellectual property. But to allow our own big tech companies to go over there and set up shop, and as I say, not just manufacturing, but actual development facilities. This company has 5,000 R&D people in China. So, I applaud the president for recognizing, look, we can't continue down this path. This is a path of insanity if you want to be a leading democracy that is the world superpower. We have to develop these products here. We have to develop these technologies here. I hear people argue all the time, but we can't be competitive. Our labor rates are too high, et cetera. Let me tell you something. A lot of manufacturing is now going with automation. You still need people to learn the automated products, run the automated products. That's not true. We absolutely can do lots of manufacturing here and be highly profitable. And if you want to be a trade balanced world, we as a country have to own and make technologies that other people around the world want to buy. So, we can tariff things to death, but ultimately, I think the goal that the president is after is to level the playing field so that people will buy things from the United States that, frankly, we will be the best providers in the world of. And that's how we'll maintain our defense posture. We'll enhance our national security. So
yeah, I think Jeff, this is a really important point you're making, which is that tariffs are not merely intended here as a kind of a clever way to get tax revenue from abroad rather than get it at home. It's really aimed at creating a shift in which not just manufacturing jobs, not just blue-collar jobs, but high-tech jobs are brought here and products are made here. I was watching, I think Kevin O'Leary in an interview with maybe CNBC, and he was making the broad point that, listen, a lot of the technological breakthroughs and the true innovations are made in the United States. We invent stuff. But then what happens is that the Chinese kind of move in and they take it over without having incurred any of the R&D costs, the development costs, the getting the product from, an idea to having an actual something that is of use in the market. The Chinese kind of skip over all that and they get the benefits of all of that for free, either by outright stealing or by the process you just unnervingly described, which is a kind of American company basically, given up the trade secrets in effect by hiring a bunch of Chinese guys, training them, and then they go marching off to other Chinese companies with that knowledge.
100%. And I think that people need to understand it's not just the enemy abroad. There's an enemy right here. And let me tell you what I think kind of stimulated a lot of this. It wasn't just the Chinese saying, if you want to do business here, you have to put R&D facilities. We have also allowed one of our best assets to be taken apart a brick at a time. It's an esoteric area, but I'm going to bring it up because I think it's a really important area, and it's our patent system. Everybody when I was a kid growing up used to think about inventors and innovators as kind of this really amazing, cool area of the United States. This guy invented this guy invented that. Well, that was all made possible because in our Constitution, not even an amendment, in the original Constitution is the notion that we will allow innovators to own the rights to their inventions. And you're given a limited time monopoly to exclude others from practicing those inventions. This was the concept that the founders decided, how do we prevent a country of becoming kings and queens where there's just a few at the top and everybody works for them, right? These people had fled from Europe where that was the norm. And so it was the patent system that was written right into the original Constitution. Well, let me give you a clue. That system has been taken apart now, mostly through big tech lobbying and legislation out of control. Frankly, courts that don't really embrace or defend patents. I mean, it's a bigger topic than we have today, but let me tell you what the end result is. There's no sheriff in town anymore. So if you're a big tech company, here or overseas, you can take other people's patented inventions, and what used to maybe be a couple, 3 years to get through the justice system and get resolution. Dinesh, I'm working on a situation today. I'm going on you're sitting down, right? 15th year. 15 years with the original company who stole our inventions, minted billions of dollars in profits out of it, and they've been able to take advantage of this weakened system where it's almost impossible to get through the process. Most people who I've seen have gone through that process have gone out of business, have gone bankrupt, have given up. We've had the very good fortune of having great support from investors. We frankly are tenacious, and we think it's such a bad place for the United States to be that just on principle, I'm going to do whatever I can to get through this and prove a point. But I'm hopeful this administration will also look at this area of our economy, because if you look at where do the really big innovations come from, I'm not going to say they don't occasionally come from large incumbents, but most of the time it's startups and small businesses. And the reason is there's something innate in the human nature when you're trying to break into something and you have nothing to lose because you're not an incumbent, and you get clever and creative. And we have no longer got a system in place to reward that. It's a totally rigged system. Again, it's a topic for probably another day. But in our situation, just to tell you how crazy it is, we actually in 2 years, like 15 years ago, in the first phase of our campaign, won a jury verdict that was a multi-$100-million jury verdict that then got reversed by a judge. We had to go through a second case, and our second case, because of the degradation of the system, we're now going on our 12th year, 12 years.
Jeff, there's a speech that was given by Lincoln, of all people. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but he talks about how in the Constitution, the protection of patents, he specifically is talking about patents, and he says it adds the fuel of interest to the fire of genius. his point being that you invent something, but now you got to motivate somebody to carry that to market to make a useful product. Otherwise, you've got, E equals MC square, but you don't know what to do with it until you have an adapter or you have a microchip or a semiconductor. And when I read that speech by Lincoln, I was like, wow, I was not aware that in the Bill of Rights there's some kind of a patent protection. But as you mentioned, this patent protection is not in the Bill of Rights. It is in the original Constitution itself. So this is kind of my exposure to it. And it's actually very fascinating that the founders were far-sighted enough to think of something like patents, which, I mean, they were in an agricultural society, very far removed from our highly industrial, and not to mention the communications revolution of the last couple of decades. So this is clearly something very important. So are you hopeful as we close out here that Trump will be able to take on this Chinese challenge? Does he seem to have a grasp of the issues that are involved? And does he have a team around him that is, as they say, on it?
I think that he is absolutely well positioned to take this on. He has a team around him that is probably the best cabinet and team we've had in my recent memory to be able to handle the challenges here, because it's a multidimensional challenge, right? I mean, I say that we've degraded our patent system. Do you know what else the Chinese copied, Dinesh? This will blow your mind. They copied our patent system when it was working. Okay, pretty smart. Guess what? We used to be the #1 most patents filed country in the world. Guess who's #1 today?
Uh-oh.
China. We're not even in the top like 5 or 6. Do you know that the Chinese now lead in like 44 of like the top 50 sciences in the world, as measured by an independent Australian think tank that tracks all this? 20 years ago, we were #1 in all of those areas. We're now only #1 in like 4. So President Trump, I think he is right on it, but it's going to take a multidimensional solution. When he talks about corruption, there's an element of this that needs to be exposed and come out and corrected. It deals with our justice system, our Department of Department of Justice. It deals with how the courts handle these things. It deals with enforcement that has to be rapid and swift and make it a penalty if you do this, not just a hand slap and there's no real sheriff in town. And the tariffs he's talking about to try to get that negotiation to level the playing field. All of these things together, in my opinion, will put America right back on track. It's degraded over a long time frame, but I believe with President Trump's leadership, this is going to come springing back. It's like a spring. The United States is the society to lead the world in innovation, democracy, what makes us a superpower. And I think there's a lot of pent up opportunity here that President Trump is going to unleash. And I don't think it's going to be decades to see the results from this. I think you're going to see this like a spring just fly open. And look, my hope and belief is that with President Trump and the direction he's going, you're going to see thousands of new companies springing up that are going to be inspired to innovate and lead the charge. And it's also a national security concern. I mean, the technology that was stolen from my company, you know where it is now, Dinesh? It's in Chinese drones. It's in military gear, and not just U.S. military gear. So this is a very important topic that we have to address. I believe President Trump will address it, and I think his strategy for leveling the playing field, starting with the tariffs, is just the beginning of what ultimately is going to happen during his first couple of years here. And I'm very excited about it because I don't think we've been in a better place in recent memory to turn this situation around. And I'm excited, very excited.
I mean, it certainly seems about time. Guys, I've been talking to Jeff Parker, founder of Parker Vision, Follow him on X at against_giants. The website is parkervision.com. Jeff, thanks for opening our eyes to a topic that we pay too little attention to, in my opinion. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Dinesh.